Motivation and emotion. Basic motivational concepts. Motivation is the process that account for an individual's intensity, direction, and persistence of effort toward attaining a goal. In other words, motivation is a need or desire that energizes behavior and directs it towards a goal. There are two types of motivation: extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is something outside the person that energizes behavior, for example, money, fame, power. The intrinsic motivation, on the other hand, is something within the person that energizes behavior. Interest, curiosity, personal challenge, and improvement are the intrinsic motivators. Instincts. In animals, instincts are inherent tendencies to spontaneously engage in a specific pattern of behavior. On the other hand, in humans, many reflexes are examples of instinctive behaviors. The most important of these include sucking, swallowing, coughing, blinking. According to Tinbergen 1951, instincts are complex behaviors that have fixed patterns throughout different species and are not learned. According to the instinct theory of motivation, all organisms are born with innate biological tendencies that help them survive. These instincts provide the energy that channels behavior in appropriate directions. In other words, instinct refers to the inborn patterns of behavior that are biologically determined rather than learned. Some common human instincts include curiosity, fight, repulsion, reproduction, etc. William McDougall, 1908, suggested that there are 18 instincts that included curiosity, the material instinct, laughter, comfort, sex, and hunger, etc. The other theorist, Bernard, 1924, came up with claiming that there are exactly 5,759 distinct instincts. The term instinct most approximately refers to an urge to do something. An instinct has an impetus which drives the organism to do something. To reduce that impetus, needs. Need refers to a condition or state of our mind that prompts or persuades us to act or behave in a specific way. Abraham Maslow developed a theory of hierarchy of needs and suggests that before more sophisticated higher order needs can be met, certain primary needs must be satisfied. In the levels of the five basic needs, the person does not feel the second need until the demands of the first have been satisfied, or the third until the second has been satisfied, and so on. Maslow's basic needs are as follows: physical, physiological needs. These are biological needs. They consist of needs for oxygen, food, water, and a relatively constant body temperature. Safety needs. This includes protection from elements, security, order, law, stability, freedom from fear. Needs of love, affection, and belongingness. Maslow states that the people seek to overcome feelings of loneliness and alienation and thus involve both giving and receiving love, affection, and the sense of belonging. Needs for esteem. When the first three classes of needs are satisfied, the needs for esteem can become dominant. This includes achievement, mastery, independence, status, dominance, prestige, self-respect, and respect from others. Needs for self actualization. Maslow describes self actualization as a person's need to be and do that for which the person was born to do. A musician must make music, an artist must paint, and poet must write. In other words, it includes realizing personal potential, self fulfillment, seeking personal growth, and peak experiences. Drive. A drive is motivational tension or arousal that energizes behavior in order to fulfill some need. In his theory, Hull used the term drive to refer to the state of tension or arousal caused by biological or physiological needs. Thirst, hunger, and the need for warmth are all examples of drives. A drive creates an unpleasant state, a tension that needs to be reduced. Drive reduction theories of motivation suggest that people act in order to reduce needs and maintain a constant physiological state. For example, people eat in order to reduce their need for food. The idea of homeostasis is central to drive reduction theories. Homeostasis is the maintenance of a state of physiological equilibrium. There are two types of drive, namely primary and secondary drive. The primary drive includes many basic kinds of drives such as hunger, thirst, sleepiness, and sex, which are related to biological needs of the body. Secondary drives are drives that are associated with the primary drives. The needs involved in secondary drives are created by a prior experience and learning. Incentives. An incentive is an environmental stimulus that pulls people to act in a particular way. Incentive approaches to motivation suggest that motivation stems from the desire to obtain valued external goals or incentives. In this view, the desirable properties of external stimuli, it be the grades or marks in any subject, money, affection, food, or sex, accounts for a person's motivation. Incentives can be used to get people to engage in certain behaviors, but they can also be used to get people to stop performing certain actions. It can only become powerful if the individual places importance on the reward. Motivational cycle. The individual always tries to satisfy his wishes or desires following in a cycle around need, drive, incentive, and reward. Need is the physical or psychological deficiency in the body. For example, a thirsty person may need something to drink. Drive is a motivational state created by the need. For example, a thirsty person may seek water to satisfy the drive for thirst, which is his need. The third component, incentive, is something that motivates an individual to perform an action. If a person is thirsty, then water will be incentive for him. Incentive may be anything, for example, food, water, wealth, promotion, recognition, etc. When an individual achieves his or her incentive and derives satisfaction from it, he enjoys a reward. Reward is the last component of the motivational cycle. Approaches to the study of motivation. Psychoanalytical. Much of psychoanalytic theory was derived from Freud's clinical experience in treating neurotic patients. Freud recognized two fundamental motivating forces. The first one is the constructive one called the eros or life urges, and the other is the destructive one called the thanatos or the death urges. Eros finds its output through drives known as self-preservation drive or ego drive and sex drive, which play a significant role in Freudian psychoanalysis. Self-destructive behavior, he believed, was one expression of the death drive. However, he believed that these death instincts are largely tempered by the life instincts. The motivating principle in life is the pleasure principle, which, according to psychoanalysis, is the tendency to avoid pain and to seek pleasure. This dominates in sex drive. As one attains maturity, this is supplemented by the reality principle. Freud introduced the threefold division of mind into conscious mind, preconscious mind, and unconscious mind. Our behavior and feelings are powerfully affected by unconscious motives, and the problems we face as adults, including psychological problems, are rooted in our childhood experiences. One basic assumption of psychoanalytical approach is that our personality is made up of three parts, that is, tripartite: the id, ego, and superego. And parts of the unconscious mind, the id and superego, are in constant conflict with the conscious part of the mind, the ego. This conflict creates anxiety, which could be dealt with by the ego's use of defense mechanisms, and the personality is shaped as the drives are modified by different conflicts at different times in childhood. During psychosexual development. Ethological approach. Human ethology can be defined as the biology of human behavior. Human ethology focuses on the evolutionary and adaptive significance of human behavior, frequently comparing it to other species' behavior. The fixed action pattern inherited movement coordination is a fundamental ethological concept. Ibesfeld, 1989. An important aspect for the survival of organisms is behavior actualized on the basis innate releasing mechanisms. Steenbergen, 1951. Some of them having the nature of a so-called key stimuli, for example, baby scheme, etc. Lawrence, 1943. In the majority of cases, topical behavior of the organism results from certain kinds of motivation states and its intensity and a specific external stimulus. The searching of organisms with a high internal motivation state for such an adequate stimulus situation is called appetite behavior. Pullian and Dunford, 1980, describe social learning as a shortcut for obtaining adaptive behavior since it need not rely on individual trial and error learning. They propose primary reinforcers which have resulted from natural selection which facilitate this process. The cognitive development theory of Kohlberg 1969, which postulates that imitation is intrinsically motivated, is compatible with this point of view. Imitation and identification since long has been given importance in the behavioral development in humans and also been found to have an important effect on human adaptiveness. The observable result of modeled action can influence imitation as well established with regards to this. Chivets 1969 proposes that all imitation is performed ultimately because of external reinforcement, and Bandura 1969 states that identificatory responses are greatly influenced by reinforcing the consequences of the behavior. Lumsden and Wilson 1981 also describe imitation and vicarious learning as one of the primary means of culture transmission, with people assessing the costs and benefits of an action before deciding to adopt a particular culture choice. Self regulation SR approach. According to Zimmerman and Skunk 2008, self regulation is the control of one's present conduct based on motives related to a subsequent goal or ideal that an individual has set for him or herself. In other words, self regulation involves controlling one's behavior in order to achieve a goal. Behavioral self regulation, also known as executive functioning, has three central components: working memory, attention and attention control, and response inhibition. Attention control is a central component because it allows children to carry out behaviors, focus on a task or problem, access working memory, and complete tasks. It is also important for learning correct behavior from other models. Working memory allows children to remember and follow directions and helps them plan solutions to problems, and it may be involved as a child compares the behavior he produced with that modeled earlier. Inhibitory control develops rapidly during early childhood and helps children control by stopping incorrect solutions to a problem or incorrect behaviors and carrying out more adaptive responses or behaviors. Another term in self regulation, that is effortful control, on the other hand, is defined as the ability to suppress a dominant response to perform a subdominant response. According to Bandura's social cognitive theory 1997, self evaluation plays a central role in development of self regulation. Children learn about which behaviors are rewarded and punished in the environment through action and observing the actions of others and evaluating the effects of these actions. These evaluations lead to the development of expectations for the outcomes of future behaviors and the establishment of internal criteria for judging the adequacy of the behaviors. Children then use these criteria to evaluate and regulate their own behavior and evaluate their effectiveness. Bronson 2000 argues that motivation and self regulation are intertwined in two ways. First, people are innately rewarded by competence and control, for example, White 1959, and second, people need self regulated control to reach other goals. Children take pleasure in controlling their own activities and producing effects in the environment, and this can lead to feelings of competence. People are also motivated to reach specific goals and earn rewards such as social approval or material gain, and self regulation is usually required to achieve these goals and rewards. Whether the activity is intrinsically or extrinsically motivated, it is self regulation that enables goal attainment and motivation that facilitates self regulation. Simply put, we are motivated to self regulate. Cognitive approach. The cognitive theories of motivation include the expectancy value theory, goal setting theory, and the attribution theory. The expectancy value theory stresses that the probability of occurrence of behavior depends upon individuals' perception of the value of a goal as well as their expectation of reaching it. Expectancy value theories hold that people are goal oriented beings. The behaviors they perform in response to their beliefs and values are undertaken to achieve some end. Utilizing this approach, behavioral intentions or attitudes are seen as a function of first expectancy or belief, the perceived probability that an object possesses a particular attribute or that a behavior will have a particular consequence, and two, evaluation, the degree of effect, positive or negative, toward an attribute or behavioral outcome. The goal setting theory was proposed by Edwin Locke in the 1960s, this theory proposes that the goal setting has an influence on task performance. Specific and challenging goals are more likely to motivate a people and lead to a better execution of tasks, whereas vague and easy goals may result to poor task performance. According to attribution theory, humans naturally seek to understand why events have occurred, especially when the outcome is important or unexpected. We all try to explain our performance through causal attributions, interpretations of events based on past performance and social norms. Attribution theory rests on three basic assumptions. First, it assumes that we do attempt to determine the causes of both our own behavior and that of others. Secondly, the assignment of causes to behavior is not done randomly, that is, rules exist that can explain how we come to the conclusions we do about the cause of behavior. Lastly, the causes attributed to particular behaviors will influence subsequent emotional and non-emotional behaviors. The attributions we make then may activate other motives. Humanistic psychology was developed primarily by Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow and came into prominence in the 1950s and 60s. According to Cartwright, 1979, humanistic psychology is concerned with topics that are meaningful to human beings, focusing especially upon subjective experience and the unique, unpredictable events in individual human lives. More specifically, humanistic psychologists argue that psychology should be based on phenomenology. According to Maslow, humans are innately good and have an innate capacity for constructive growth, honesty, generosity, and love. He believed that our actions are motivated in order to achieve certain hierarchy of needs, which is a combination of deficiency needs, need for survival, need for safety and growth needs, need for love and belonging, need for esteem, need for self-actualization. This hierarchy suggests that people are motivated to fulfill basic needs before moving on to other more advanced needs. The five different levels in Maslow's hierarchy of needs include the physiological needs, such as the need for water, air, food, and sleep. These needs are the most basic and instinctive needs in the hierarchy because all needs become secondary until these physiological needs are met. Second is the security need, which are important for survival but they are not as demanding as the physiological needs. Third is the social needs, which include needs for belonging, love, and affection. Fourth is the esteem needs, which includes the need for things that reflect on self esteem, personal worth, social recognition, and accomplishment. Lastly, is the highest level need termed as self actualizing needs. According to Maslow, 1954, self actualization can be described as in the following way: a musician must make music, an artist must paint, a poet must write. If he is to be ultimately at peace with himself, what a man can be, he must be. Self actualized people are characterized by an acceptance of themselves, spontaneity, and the need for privacy, resistance to cultural influences, empathy, profound interpersonal relations, a democratic character, structure, creativeness, and a philosophical sense of humor. According to Maslow, Abraham Lincoln, Eleanor Roosevelt, and Albert Einstein were identified as self actualizers. Carl Rogers, 1902 to 1987, was another humanistic psychologist who agreed with the main assumptions of Abraham Maslow but added that for a person to grow, they need an environment that provides them with genuineness, openness, and self disclosure, acceptance, being seen with unconditioned positive regard, and empathy, being listened to and understood. Social motives are also called as learned motives or secondary motives. They are called social because they are learned in social groups, especially in the family. Murray described needs as a potentiality or readiness to respond in a certain way under certain given circumstances. 1938, he identified needs as one of two types: primary needs and secondary needs. The primary needs are biological in nature and includes the need for oxygen, food, and water. Secondary needs, on the other hand, are psychological in nature. For example, need for nurturing, independence, and achievement, need for achievement, and the need to achieve is basically defined as a need to be successful in competition with some standard of excellence, wherein doing as well as or other or better than someone is a primary concern. Behavioral manifestation of an achievement occur as an effective response in connection with evaluative performance. Thus, the elements of success, standard of excellence, competition, and evaluative performance are all elements related to the conception of the achievement motive. Researchers on an achievement had found that an achievement is developed in the early childhood within the dynamics of the mother child interaction. Besides that, other researchers have has found that individuals who have high need to achieve and low anxiety scores show preference for tasks with intermediate probability of success. Such individuals also maintain a generally high performance level and are persistent in problem solving tasks, whereas individuals who are low in an achievement and high in anxiety scores tend to choose tasks with probabilities for success at either extreme, that is, they tend to select unrealistic levels of aspiration. Such individuals are also less effective in their performance and less persistent in problem solving situations. According to Draft 2008, the need for achievement is a desire to accomplish something difficult, attain a high standard of success, master complex tasks, and surpass others. Individuals who exhibit the need for achievement seek to accomplish realistic but challenging goals. Need for affiliation and affiliation. According to McClellan 1961, affiliation refers to establishing, maintaining, or restoring a positive, effective relationship with another person. This relationship is most adequately described by the word friendship. DAF 2008, on the other hand, defined the need for affiliation as a desire to form close personal relationships, avoid conflict, and establish warm friendships. There is an essential need for human beings to establish and maintain affinitive relationships with others. This need is called the affiliation need. The affiliation need is important when we consider human relations or group formation. People who want to establish and maintain a friendly relationship with another person are apt to follow or sympathize with this person. Those with a high need for affiliation and maintain harmonious relationships with other people and need to feel accepted by other people. They tend to conform to the norms of their work group. High and F individuals prefer work that provides significant personal interaction. For example, in a setting like an office, need for affiliation might include joining office organizations, making friends with co-workers, and creating a sense of belonging within the country. A low need of affiliation can be part of a more independent personality. People who do not feel a strong desire to affiliate with others may be viewed as loners and could have difficulty finding support. Need for approval. According to Horney, people who do not have their needs for love and affection satisfied during childhood develop basic hostility toward their parents and as a consequence suffer from basic anxiety. Hornet theorized that people combat basic anxiety by adopting one of three fundamental styles of relating to others: moving toward people, moving against people, moving away from people. In her book Self Analysis 1942, Horney outlined the 10 neurotic needs she had identified. Among these, one need is need for affection and approval. These needs includes a desire to be liked, to please other people, and meet the expectations of others. People with this type of need are extremely sensitive to rejection and criticism and fear the anger or hostility of others. Theories of emotions. James Lange theory. The James Lange theory was developed independently by two 19th century scholars, William James and Karl Lange. According to this theory, environmental stimuli triggers physiological responses and bodily movements, and emotion occurs when the individual interprets his or her visceral and muscular responses. For example, you see a bear while walking on the road, you might begin to tremble and your heart begins to race. This theory states that all emotion is derived from the presence of a stimulus which evokes a physiological response such as muscular tension, a rise in heart rate, perspiration, and dryness of mouth. This physical arousal makes a person feel a specific emotion. According to this theory, emotion is a secondary feeling indirectly caused by the primary feeling, which the physiological response is caused by the presence of a stimulus. Perceived stimulus gives physiological response different for different emotions and which gives experience emotions. Cannon-Bard theory. The Cannon-Bard theory of emotions was developed by Walter Cannon and Philip Bard. According to the Cannon-Bard theory of emotion, emotions and bodily changes do not share a cause and effect relationship, rather they occur simultaneously following a stimulating event. In other words, it states that we feel emotions and experience physiological reactions such as sweating, trembling, and muscle tension simultaneously. For example, if someone dies, the reactions of crying and feeling sad occur at the same time. Even if a person sees a bear, he feels afraid and his muscles get tense at the same time, preparing to run away from the dangerous animal. Stimulus, physiological and behavioral changes plus emotions. Scaster and Singer theory. The Scaster and Singer theory of emotion, also known as two-factor theory of emotion, suggests that emotions comes from a combination of a state of arousal and a cognition that makes best sense of the situation the person is in. It is the cognition which determines whether the state of physiological arousal will be labeled as joy, fear, etc. For example, the two factor theory of emotion argues that when people become aroused, they look for cues as to why they feel the way they do. Both cognition and arousal are considered necessary conditions for the occurrence of an emotional state. According to According to Scaster's 1964, if either of them is missing, no emotion will be experienced. When an individual encounters a stimulating event, perception and interpretation of this stimulus follows. After this, the processed information is divided into two: stimulus and the context of the event, which is a specific cognitive label. The information about the information about the stimulus triggers a general autonomic arousal, or we can say certain specific physiological changes take place in addition to the general autonomic arousal. The cognitive label causes a particular emotion to be experienced. Once an emotion is experienced, feedback occurs. A conflict has generally been defined as a situation in which two or more parties strive to acquire the same scarce resources at the same time. Conflict by itself is neither good nor bad. However, the manner in which conflict is handled determines whether it is constructive or destructive. According to Fisher 1990, conflict is defined as an incompatibility of goals or values between two or more parties in a relationship, combined with attempts to control each other and antagonistic feelings toward each other. There are three types of conflicts: approach, avoidance, and avoidance. Approach conflicts. It is a psychological conflict that results when a choice must be made between two desirable alternatives. And example of a approach conflict would be where you have to decide whether two appealing destinations for your vacation. For example, Singapore versus Australia. The approach conflict is the one that is the least stressful, although in situations where you need to make important decisions, for example deciding between two good career opportunities, it can result in some increased stress. It typically results from limitations on one's time, space, energy, and personal and financial resources. Research suggests that approach conflicts are easier to resolve than any other type. As you tentatively near one goal, say commerce stream, which while choosing between humanities and commerce, its attractiveness increases. As you emphasize the advantages, it has many future prospects. You are closer to your choice. At the same time, the appeal of the other goal decreases and the conflict ends. People generally resolve approach conflicts easily because they always result in something pleasant. Moreover, the alternatives can be achieved in turn. Avoidance conflict. This type of conflict occurs when a person has to make a choice between two unattractive options. For example, choosing one amongst the two situations where you have to decide between cleaning kitchen avoidance or chopping vegetables avoidance. Research shows that as organisms approach an unattractive choice, it becomes more repellent. Avoidance conflicts arouse a great deal of anxiety typically and are difficult to resolve. Whatever choice is made will not be satisfying, so you simply have to decide which is the lesser of two evils or least stressful. Approach avoidance conflict. In this situation, the individual is both attracted and repelled by the same goal. The same goal has qualities that make the individual want to approach it and other qualities that make him want to avoid it. The approach side of this type of conflict is easy to start toward the goal, but as the goal is approached, the negative factors increase in strength, which causes indecision. For example, you may want to exercise again because you know it will make you feel better, but are also afraid of exercising because you are worried you could get injured. In this manner, the person is brought back to the original point of equilibrium. Double approach avoidance. An individual frequently might face the situation wherein he has to choose between two or more goals, each of which has both attracting and repelling aspects. Since the tendency is to approach and avoid each of the goals, this pattern is called double approach avoidance. For example, the only available job Since the tendency is to approach and avoid each of the goals, this a pattern is called double approach avoidance. For example, the only available job is not my cup of tea but will provide income, or getting to watch the late night 9 to 12 movie show but not getting enough sleep for school the next day. Double approach avoidance conflicts are anxiety provoking and hard to resolve.